Hi everybody, it's Michelle Chalfant, and it is time for another DriveTime download. I've been inspired and I have to talk about it. So when I get inspired, I get these, what I feel like are downloads of information. So I'm here to share them now. And we're calling them DriveTime downloads. So I hope you enjoy. So I've been really inspired by the Adult Chair closed group because there's been a recent discussion about feeling our emotions. I had posted a quote about feeling emotions and how important it is. And there seemed to be quite a few comments about how do you do that? And I've tried and I don't know how to do that. And how do you begin to do that? And a lot of people were chiming in. So it's been heavy on my mind and I'm inspired right now to talk about it. So here we go. So unfortunately, in our society, we don't really do emotions all that well. In fact, when someone says to us, that they feel sad or they feel depressed or they feel angry, typically the response is something like, oh, it's temporary, or hey, why don't we go out for a drink and that'll make you feel all better. Or if a child even were to come in and say that to their parent, there might be like a distraction of, well, here, have a cookie. That might make you feel better. So we do all kinds of things in order not to feel our emotions. And people around us model that for us, that really the unspoken message is something like, it's not safe to feel these emotions or they're bad. So let's get rid of them, cover them up, have a glass of wine, do something in order to mask them and bury them. So by the time that we reach adulthood, we really aren't great at feeling our emotions. And emotions are important. And what's interesting is we really want to feel happy or we want to feel peaceful, but we don't want to feel anything else. Typically when I ask people what their emotions are, like what are the dominant emotions, they might say something like, oh, happy, sad, afraid, and angry. But actually we have thousands of emotions that we can feel. Things like, I don't matter, I'm not good enough, shame, lonely, guilt, grief, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. Those are all of the ones I would say on the fear-based end of the scale. And then of course we have the love end of the scale. So if you think about a yardstick, everything is from love to fear and everything in between. And right in the middle, I would say, is something like peace or neutral. And what we want to do is feel the emotions even on the fear-based end of the spectrum and not shove them down, because the further we go down on the fear-based end of the spectrum, the further then we can go on the love-based. So if you want to feel more joy, more love in your life, you got to feel your shame. You've got to feel your unworthiness. You got to feel all that, or you're not going to feel as happy as you really could or as joyful as you could. So it's a spectrum. So the further you go down one side, the further you will go on the other side. People are always telling me, I'm really afraid I'm going to get stuck in this anger or this fear if I sit in it or if I go there. The thing is with emotions is when we feel an emotion, the emotions actually move through us. And what gets our emotions stuck is when the brain or the ego gets scared and it freezes the emotion inside of us. So if we go in with the intention of, okay, I'm just going to allow myself to let this pass through me, it doesn't stay typically longer than 2 minutes. So it's the brain that keeps it stuck. The other thing that keeps an emotion stuck are the stories that we build around the emotion. So let's just say, for example, I feel really sad because my boyfriend broke up with me. If the sadness will move through us, but then what happens is, then we go into the story of something like, I'll never meet anyone like him again, which keeps us sadder and keeps us stuck in that emotion. Oh my God, I'm going to be alone the rest of my life. All men are jerks or whatever. But we go into these stories then around the emotions, which then cause further suffering. So we suffer when we make up the story around the emotion. So what we want to do instead is just learn how to let these emotions move through us. And then we can find our place, our center again, or our place back in balance. I know I have a few other podcasts on very, very similar topics, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but I just want to just touch on a few of the highlights. What do we do when we think we might have an emotion to feel, but we're not quite sure because we're not great at feeling emotions when we typically are used to numbing them out. So the first thing we want to do, or one thing we want to do, is instead of going for the emotion and labeling that like, oh my God, I think it's my unworthiness, or oh my goodness, I think I'm feeling sad. If we're not good at feeling emotions, it's really hard for us even to grasp which one it is. So what we can notice though is what's happening in the physical body when we are experiencing an emotion. For example, we might feel knots in our stomach, the very slightest contraction in the throat or tightness in the throat. We might feel tension in our shoulders. So when we have an emotion, the physical body actually responds as well. But again, if we're not used to feeling any emotions, we're just kind of numbed out to the whole thing, so we might not even feel it in the physical body. So start getting curious about what might I be feeling? What is my body feeling? So that's a safer place to go. If you really aren't good at feeling emotions, it's a safer place to go with just noticing what's happening in my body and being with it. Don't shove it away. Don't numb it out. Get really curious. So when we're in our adult chair, remember, we're curious. So sit with curiosity and wonder and go, wow, I wonder what emotion's coming through me right now. And you can do this also with positive emotions, not just the ones that are on the negative end of that spectrum. Gosh, what am I feeling? And oftentimes we'll go to, I feel happy. Okay, well, what else are you feeling? Like, is there anything else? Well, gosh, I guess I feel excited too, and I guess I feel really hopeful. But we don't know that until we start with even in what's going on in the body. So just start paying attention to the little indicators of what's happening in the physical body. And I was going to, on a side note, again, oftentimes when I ask my clients, what are you feeling? What sensation in the body? What's happening in your body? They'll say, oh, it's all in my head, or I have a headache, or there's pressure in my head. To me, that tells me that it's just like, think about like a pressure cooker. So the lid is on really tightly, and we don't want to feel what's going on. So instead of feeling it, we're just going to keep the lid on it. And that keeps the emotions up high in the head. So I don't believe that we're actually feeling an emotion in the brain. I feel it's when we feel tension in the head, it's resisting the feeling in the body. So I then will invite people to go drop below the chin, and what are you feeling now? Like, invite yourself to drop below your chin and notice what's happening there if you feel this really like a pressure in your head. So, or like a slight headache coming on. That just tells me that there is resistance going on. You're capping it. There's a lid on it. So remember, when we in that adolescent chair is this egoic part of us, and the ego is really afraid to feel emotions. It does not want to feel emotions. It thinks that if you feel these really negative emotions, you just might die. So it's not a good idea to feel the emotions. So go easy with yourself, be easy on yourself, and allow yourself to take this nice and slowly and notice what's happening in the physical body versus jumping right into, gosh, what am I feeling? Another thing that we want to do, and we might even do this if we can't feel what's going on in the physical body, you might even want to start here with closing your eyes, taking some nice, slow, deep breaths. You hear me say that often because that puts us back into the adult chair. In the adolescent chair, because the ego sits there and it's based in fear, remember, its job is to keep us alive. So the energy there moves very fast. Our breathing is fast. So it's hard to get in touch with what we're feeling. So we want to slow everything down, and we can slow our bodies down and the mind with our breath. So when we intentionally breathe slowly, everything slows down, and we drift back into the body, and we become more in touch with what we are feeling. And lastly, I just want to talk about for a second, which I know I've talked about before. I think there's a whole podcast on connecting into that inner child part. Remember, you guys, the inner child is the container or the part of us that has all of these emotions. So when we feel sad, happy, shame, any of these emotions, they're coming from the part of us that's in the child chair, which is the inner child. So oftentimes when we are young, we get scared, shamed, we feel like we're bad. And when we move then into the adolescent chair around the age of 7, and sometimes even before, we not only bury our feelings and bury our emotions, and we make ourselves not in touch or block ourselves from feeling those emotions, but we also take that inner child part of us and she or he gets abandoned by us. So it's gone, it's hidden in the basement, it's deep in the deep forest, and we can't find our inner child. So one of the ways that we learn how to feel our emotions, if we don't know how to feel our emotions, is to reconnect with the inner child part of who we are. And I've got a meditation that walks you through this. It's a beautiful guided meditation. And most everyone that has tried this or that has done this has been able to then connect with their inner child, and they start then to be in touch with not only what they're feeling in their body, but they start having a sense of what they're feeling emotionally speaking. So here you go. So here are a few tips on what are we doing with our emotions? How do we feel our emotions? Where do we begin to feel the emotions? So just to recap, slow everything down. It slides us into our adult chair. And remember, when we're in our adult chair, we're in the seat of the observer. So then we're able to observe what's going on. We can observe what's going on in that adolescent chair. And that part of us might be rushing around, blocking, telling us to have a glass of wine, telling us to turn on the television instead of noticing what's going on inside of us. We can make other suggestions from that adult chair. It might say, you know what, I'm okay. I just would like to know what's going on within my body. And remember, the adult part of us is the only part that truly can connect into that child. When I'm in my adult and I'm curious, I'm able to connect more into my feelings. But you might want to try that inner child meditation first to reconnect with that part of you so that then you have better access. And it might take doing that inner child meditation a couple times so that you really then can connect into that part of you. I also have another meditation on YouTube, which is an inner child meditation that people absolutely love as well, because again, it's helping you to get in touch with that part of you. You know, again, many of us were shamed growing up. You know, a lot of times I know I heard growing up from my grandmother, things like, shame on you. Oh, you're so bad. And my grandmother had the belief that children were to be seen and not heard. So if I were to speak up or have something to say, that's kind of what I would hear back from my grandmother, is these shaming statements. And if I were upset, I'd hear something like, what's the matter with you? Or what's wrong with you that you're so upset right now? In other words, like, what's your problem? Like, get rid of that emotion. It's silly or it's stupid. So I learned, don't feel emotions. And certainly it's not safe to feel emotions, especially these vulnerable emotions. So I had to learn how to get in touch with my emotions, and I have done that. And this is why I've created these meditations for you guys so that then you can also do the same thing. So that's it. I am done with the DriveTime download and sending love to all of you. And I know you're going to be able to do this. You're going to be able to connect into your emotions. And there is such power here, you guys. It's truly, truly amazing. You start being able to live more inside the body, and your emotions, which I believe are it's a guidance system for us. So we start knowing when we make decisions in our lives, we'll get an emotion in the heart that says yes or no. We actually have an internal guidance system, and they are our emotions. So it's so important that we feel our emotions. So, okay, enjoy this. Again, love you all. Have a beautiful day. Talk to you soon on the next podcast with Pete. Okay, bye.